I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going.
Let's bring in the man of the hour, Zac Twardowski. Let me hunt you down. You with me, brother?
I'm here, man. Hey, thank you for having me on, bro. Appreciate it.
Sir, let me get you pinned up here. Let me find you. All right. It's 140 people. Oh, there we are. See you. Are you with me loud and clear?
I'm here, man.
Appreciate you getting on with us today, man. So you don't need an introduction. Your name speaks for itself. So excited for everything that you've taught, myself and all the leaders that are in our team specifically. We've learned so much from you to be able to get to the place that we are now. Your tremendous percent of it came from your knowledge that's been passed down to us. So join me in welcoming in Zac into our call. Drop some ones, drop some emojis in the chat for him. This is going to be a fire call that I'm excited for specifically as well. So go ahead and take it away from here, Zac.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, thank you for having me. I think one thing everyone on this call should realize is you would look at the industry we're in right now, which is the best industry you could possibly be in. There's people who are in mortgages right now, real estate, those things go up and down, solar, stuff like that goes up and down. Like insurance has stayed consistent for the entire 8 years I've been here, whether the interest rates have been 2% or 7%. So you're in the right industry, right? I think the right timing is super important too, right, Ronnie? Like when I started in the industry, we were flying across the country selling insurance, and only a few people on this call were there for that. Like Mahmoud was there, and Nate was there, and Alm was there. But that was basically it. We were buying. I lived in South Carolina. I was buying leads there and flying to Ohio to run business because we didn't have leads where I lived, right? And we couldn't do virtual sales, right? And so I think it's the right time to be in the industry. And then you have the right leadership group that's put a lot of things in place, like Ronnie was going over, having free leads for people, having structured calls like that on a daily basis, having really good training, and I think most importantly, having really good trainers that are not just guessing what it's like to sell a lot of insurance, or that sold insurance 5 years ago and are guessing what it would be like to sell insurance today. Like you guys are a part of the group that has people who are doing everything they're preaching to on a daily basis. So I'm excited to, Ronnie, go over whatever you want to go over today. But I think everyone, if you're new on here and you haven't realized it yet, like this is a special group that's growing faster than anything I've ever seen before in the industry. And it's all organic, right? It's all people that are coming in. It's mostly unlicensed people, which I love because people are learning the industry for the first time. And it's a lot of positivity, no BS, no drama. Like we're all just here to get better, to cheer each other on. And the rising tide raises all boats. So Ronnie, I'll answer any questions you have. Any guys on here have any questions? Happy to go through whatever you all want to, but I just wanted to give you and the team a shout out for what you guys have put together and how structured it is, and you take away all the excuses people could possibly have to not have success in the industry, which I think is super important.
For sure, which is huge, man. And you're a big part of it. And I remember you said something at Founders Day, which is really like it describes your way of leading. And you said something like, and Brent Abernathy kind of like chimed into it, is like the amount of time that it took you to get to that seven-figure a month was like 3 years. And then you were able to help Wiley get there in 2 years and change. And then myself, even less than that. And like that just defines like how good of a leader that you've been to us in our group specifically, is that all
Yeah.
of that knowledge is getting passed down from the top. And for us to be able to get to where we are now and the speed that we're at now as a whole, All Stars is in a group, is just, by having that knowledge passed down from you and you showing us how to do it faster than you did it. And the biggest thing that I want to highlight for everybody on this call is that when you got into the industry, like I remember hearing your stories, like Deb was moving because she had got into school, right?
Yeah, so this was 2017. We just graduated college.
Yeah.
We both got into medical school and we deferred our enrollment for 2 years. And she took this job or this program called Teach for America in South Carolina. So we moved to South Carolina, had no friends, no family, nothing there. And it was kind of just like a reset for me, which was important. I was talking to Sean about this the other day. Like I think it's important, like you look back and try to go like, how could I be the mentor I needed when I was 22 years old, right? Like when I was 22 years old, I had no money. But more important than that, like I had probably little self-confidence. Like I didn't view myself as a leader. Didn't view myself as, even a business person or someone who was capable of leading in any way. I drank too much. Went out all the time. I did all these things that I wasn't proud of. And I think I was probably some level of depressed, right, Ronnie? Like I wasn't in a good spot. I didn't view myself in a good way. And I felt like I had all these external pressures on myself. And then I moved away from all the people that were kind of dragging me down. We were put in a different location, and it was kind of fight or flight. But I found this industry, and I found people like Sean and Andrew and different people who were living their life differently. And I needed that at that point in my life. I needed people who were said, "Hey, it's okay not to drink 4 nights a week. It's okay to, to be obsessed with business and to be able to like really pour all the messed up addict stuff I have going on. Like you can channel that in a really good way, and to be able to get around other people that have figured out how to channel the things that society might tell you is like wrong with you, and like channel it into a really positive way of living your life, right? And that was so like my goal, Ronnie, has always been to like how can I be the person I needed when I was 22 years old. I never wanted to not be in the business because had I not found this business when I was 22, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Yeah.
I probably would have gone back to medical school. I'd probably still drink a bunch. I probably would still not look at myself the way that I want to look at the way I look at myself now. Dude, when I was 22, I didn't ever want to have kids or get married. Not because I didn't like the idea of it, because I didn't think I was a man worthy of that sort of thing. And being around the right kinds of people and the right mentorship made me feel a lot better about this. So I think when everyone on here, when you're recruiting, when you're bringing people into the business, like you should be looking at it like, yes, I want to help people make money. Yes, I want to help people, do really well. Yes, I want to make money for my family. But like a layer deeper than that is like, how can I really help mentor, develop, and mold people to become, the best version of themselves financially for sure, but as people, like how they view themselves, give them confidence, build them up, and breathe life into people. Because this is a lot more than just business, a lot more than just making money. It's like, how can we impact people and future generations from a financial and educational perspective, right?
Yeah, and that's huge. A lot of times, like when people are recruiting, they think that there's this perfect description of somebody that can come into the business. And if you guys took anything away from that, like he had just graduated college, didn't have any sales background, was just trying to figure out what
Mhm.
to do with life. And I remember when you told me that story where you just like decided to go all in, you just like that was it, like you're like,
Yeah.
that's it, I'm doing this and it's gonna work out no matter what. And the biggest thing that I want to highlight is like every leader that I look at that has led at a high example, sold at a high example to begin with. And people think
Mhm.
for some reason that they can bypass that part. And something you always told me was that I needed to always sell $40,000 a month till my team reached to 1 million. And then I needed to focus on scaling my team because
Yeah.
if I'm on the phones all day, I can't pay attention to my team. Why was that so important for you to sell at a high level to get to the level that you're at now?
So I think a lot of times when people are building a team, they go like, I have a hard time balancing. And if anyone's ever said this or feels this now, put a one in the chat. Like I have a hard time balancing selling and recruiting at the same time, right? And the reason I always like encourage all of our leaders to do both at a high level is because if you're selling at a really high level, and by high level I mean you're selling like 40, 50 grand a month, minimally 40, right? But like you could be an adult and sell 60, right? Like if you work a little bit, y'all could sell 60 grand a month. Especially with the system we have now, like with everything you have, the leads, virtual sales, that whole thing, 60 grand a month, right? And
Mhm.
then putting 10 people into class a week. And the reason I always encourage the leaders to keep selling 15 grand a week is because if you're selling that much and you're bringing that many new people in, it's impossible for you to focus on the wrong people because you're so busy and you have limited time where you have to prioritize the right people. The biggest mistake we make in business is if you have 10 new people come on, we all try to take all 10 of them and force them all to be successful, right? And I remember you used to get so frustrated with this. You're like, I can't get these guys and these girls to, do X, Y, or Z, right? And I'm like, yeah, but do they want to do X, Y, and Z? And you're like, no, I don't think so, right? Or they say they do, but they don't show me that they want to. So whenever you're frustrated in business, what I learned was if I was ever frustrated with the current team I had, I'm like, I don't have a team of A players right now. I have a team of B and C players. And the way I learned this probably a year ago, I read a book. It was How to Make a Few Billion Dollars by Brad Jacobs. And he said he defined it where like C players were people that if they called you and said they were quitting, you'd be like, thank God, like you're a pain in the ass. I'm good with that. B players would be like, they sell 20 grand a month, but like we'll live, right? And then A players, you're like, oh shit, how did we get here where this person's quitting? Like this is really bad. And I think like everyone on this call, if you're building a team, you should think about it and go like, how many A players do I have? And if you don't have anyone that you'd be freaked out if you lost, not that you're not going to make it back, but that would be a detriment to your team if you lost them, then you don't have a team, right? And the only thing you can do is not try to force people to become C players to become B and B to become A. It's go out there and recruit new A players, right? And the only way to always be recruiting new A players is set the right example. If you sell like Ronnie, how many times have people asked you who ended up being really good producers how much you sold and how much you made from you selling insurance a month?
A lot.
A lot, right? And you don't go like, oh, like I have Jake right there. He sells 60 grand a month. You go, no, I sell 60 grand a month, but I can show you how to do that. Right.
Yeah.
People that are legitimate top performers want to be mentored by top performers, right? People that are top performers want to be coached and challenged. They want to be coached and challenged by people who know what they're doing, right? So my reason for telling you to always sell 50, 60 grand a month was not because I thought you needed the money, because I wanted you to be busy enough doing the right activity to where you would attract the right people. And then you wouldn't have time to mess around with the people who are working, who'd come in at 11 a.m. and leave the office at 4 p.m., make 150 dials and say they worked all day. Like, I don't want you focusing on them. I wanted you to be so busy to where if you had 10 agents that you could only focus on the top two who are putting in the most amount of effort, because that's where your time belonged at, right? And if you can focus on those two or three people and then help them become 30, 40, 50K producers and then help them start building teams, that's where the money's made. Because it's a lot easier to take someone who's a 30K producer and turn them into a 60K producer and a $500,000 leg than it is to take someone who sells 5 grand a month to make them a 20K producer. But everyone on this call, and myself included, we try to beg, barter, cheat, and steal to get people that sell 5 to 10 grand a month to become 20K producers. To sell 20 grand a month, that's all that takes. And I'm sorry if there's anyone here who disagrees with me, but I've been doing this long enough. To sell 15, 20K a month, all it takes is if you make a few $100s a day, like $400 or $500 a day, you call enough people for a month straight, you're going to accidentally close some people. You don't even you don't have to read a script. You can just say, hey, I'm calling about some life insurance. You want to buy something? If you make enough calls a day, you're going to accidentally close some people.
Yeah.
But my goal, Ronnie, with you was to not get you being so infatuated and focused with the few people you had. I wanted you to be selling so much to where you had to choose who your best one or two were. And then I wanted you to be recruiting enough people to where you had to focus on the best one or two people you're recruiting, because that's where you got the biggest ROI. That makes sense?
100%. I think the biggest thing that people struggle with while they're scaling and selling at a high level, like I get it all the time where I'll get a call and somebody's team will be at like 150,000 and they're like, it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard to sell. I'm like, dude, trust me, it's not. You're just not being intentional with your time. And that's why
Yeah.
you're not able to sell $40,000 a month. And one of the biggest things that I would say I learned from you was being intentional with my time. So when it comes down to like being intentional in the early phase, like what would you have to say about that when it comes down to time management?
I was talking to Caleb and Garrett about this weekend, and Garrett was like, I feel like I'm all over the place, right? I'm
Mhm.
like, well, do you have a specific time blocked out on your calendar? He's like, I do. I'm like, okay, cool. So like, what are your times? He's like, I have from 9 to 12 where I'm dialing the phone and selling insurance. And then from 12 to 2, I'm doing recruiting stuff. And then I get back on the phones from 2 to 7 or whatever, right? I'm like, cool, that is the right idea. Now, if a new agent comes into your office at 10:15 and says, hey, I want to go over phone script, what do you do? Because I go over it. I'm like, that's where you're screwing up. It's because you're not protecting your time. Like, you have this stuff structured out, but you're not sticking to it, right? And you can ask, like, Wiley was one of the first people that from our team that did 150 grand a month. I think the only people that are left are Wiley and Easton. That's probably it. This was 5.5 years ago, right? But when Wiley came in, like, if he had a question, I'd be like, no, dude, sit there and dial. Like, well, I want to know what to say when I get to the appointment. Okay, sounds good. We'll go over that at 12 o'clock. In the meantime, we're running in-home appointments, right? But in the meantime, I need to dial and set appointments so that I have people to come see, right? Well, what's the train? Dude, read the script and call the leads. We'll get to the in-home training later. But I was trying to get him to focus on the right activity and not overthink steps 2, 3, and 4. I'm like, let's get to step 1 first, right? And so my point to Garrett was like, if you get an inbound DM or you get an agent that wants to go over X, Y, or Z, like, you need to redirect them and teach people when you're available to talk about certain things. And you need to, the same way that y'all have great structure in the home, where you go, hey, excuse me, sir, like, I know you just want the quotes, but I have to ask you these questions to make sure that, I put you with the right carrier. And y'all are really good at selling insurance. So you set really good structure. You have to do the same thing with agents. Go, hey, I want to go through in-home. Hey, sounds good, man. I'm dialing till 12 o'clock. At 12:01, let's go through your in-home presentation, right? And then redirect them so that they're not wasting your time and figuring out things to distract you from what you need to do. Because when you're a new producer and you're in the early stages, you selling 40, 50 grand a month is the best training for your agents, because you're modeling the behavior you want them to repeat, right? Because people will do 100% of what you say and 100% of what you do and half of what you say. Like, if you just tell people to do things, they're not going to do it. And so, and then the follow-up part about that, Ronnie, is when the big tendency we have is every time we bring on a new agent, we want to spend hours and hours and hours on end training them on things that will never come up, right? And we'll go through like, hey, here's all the possible in-homes. If if they're a veteran and they want to take care of their kids, this is what you do. If they have a mortgage, this is what you do. If they are older, this is what you do. And I'm like, dude, let's just get there when we get there. Like, I just need you making phone calls. And when you get that scenario on the phone, let me know and I'll help you close it. But I need you to make 500 dials first, right? And let's start doing the right activity. And then the follow-up point to what talked to Garrett about was when you have new people that want to ask you questions, like you have to be in charge like you are in home,
Yeah.
right? So if Ronnie comes to me and goes, "Hey, I want to," or you have to be like you are in your presentation. If Ronnie comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to know what to say after they answer the phone," I don't just start talking to him about what he's asking. I ask him questions to figure out what actually needs to be uncovered. So I go, "Sounds good, Ronnie. Let me ask you a question. How many dials did you make today?" I made 150. Okay, cool. You made 150 dials. How many people picked up the phone? 22. Okay, cool. 22 picked up the phone. How many presentations did you get into? I got into 21 of those. Got it. How many of those did you get to show numbers on? I showed numbers at 18 of them. Okay, cool. How many of those did you close? I closed one. Right. Like then from me asking Ronnie the right questions, I can figure out, okay, like, dude, you don't need to know what to say when they pick up the phone. You don't even need to make more dials. Like I need to teach you this specific part of the in-home presentation or the presentation, the specific part between when they say, yes, I want to go through a presentation, you don't close them. That's where I need to focus in on. And it's really easy to ask a few extra questions and figure out what the real issue is with people. But a lot of times we just answer the questions our agents ask us.
Mhm.
They say, hey, I want to talk about, what to say at the beginning of the phone call. Or I want to talk about how to show numbers. And as a manager, your job is to ask a few additional questions to uncover where the real issue is, because that'll take an hour conversation where you may go through the whole presentation with them and turn it into a 7-minute conversation where you go, hey, what do you say at this part of the presentation? Okay. Oh, no, don't say that. Say this instead. All right, cool. We're off to the races. That makes sense?
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I notice is almost like when you're scaling and selling and recruiting and training, like if you're holding the agent's hand too much to where you're making
Mm-hmm.
yourself available to train all day throughout the day, it hurts your production. But the other thing is it also hurts the agent as well because they're not
Yeah.
becoming self-sufficient. And that's like one of the biggest things I learned from you. Like really the only few days that matter are the first 2 or 3 days. And then after that, I remember you would just tell me like, hey, tell them to write down how many dials they made, where they got hit on the phone, and how many presentations, where they got shut down, and how many they closed. And then
Yeah.
after that, you can pinpoint the problem. But like sitting there and babysitting them all day, like unless you're pinpointing the actual issue, is not going to get them anywhere. And that's really what it comes down to. And like just like you said, when it comes down to being intentional with your time, the people that are not able to sell at a high level and train at a high level are the ones that are just, training people in the middle of the day. Like I used to do trainings on Sundays. That's how intentional I was with my time at one point, or the
Yeah.
mornings or at night. And that's really what it comes down to. That's going to help you sell at that high level. Now, the biggest thing that I would say is like the next bump is after you start getting that motion, right? When you're getting to that 150, 200K level, like most people think that they can do everything on their own. And I
Mm-hmm.
specifically, I got stuck at that level, and I'll show you guys something I haven't pulled up. I got stuck at that level for like 4 or 5 months where I couldn't crack 300, 400,000. And what
Yeah.
it came down to me was me doing everything on my own. So, how important is it to hire staff early on?
I think it's super important. Ronnie, let me loop back to that one thing you mentioned about training, right? Like I think the training is good. Like being on calls like this are really good, but to your point, it's at 7 p.m. Eastern time, right? Like you have 3 kids. When when your kids learn how to swim, what did they do to learn how to swim?
In practice.
They practice. They threw them in the pool, right? Like I remember the first time they threw my daughter in the pool, I wanted to punch the dude in the face because that's my baby girl. But I was like, no, you teach her how to swim. I get it. But they did not show your kids YouTube videos of swimming, right?
Mhm.
They dunked him under the water, and then they brought him back up, and then they dunked him under the water again. Then they cried, and then they brought him back up, and then they learned how to swim eventually, right? I think what we try to do too much is like to show everyone essentially a YouTube video on how to swim. It's like the only way to learn how to swim is to jump in the pool, breathe in some water, have someone pull you back out, and try it again, right? So when y'all are training agents, like let them fail. It's okay to fail. It's not a big deal to fail. Like that's normal part of the process, and they'll learn it way faster if they go through that and they learn how to fail and they learn how to succeed on their own than if just sit there and have them in a life vest the whole time. They won't know how to fail and they'll never get better. I think we try to hold people's hands too much. And I encourage everyone, like, let people start dialing, let them mess up a few presentations. We have free leads. Who cares?
Yeah.
If they don't sell the person, who cares? There's 10,000 more leads for them to dial through. You're not wasting any money, you're not wasting any time. We need people to learn quickly whether or not they can make it in this industry or not. And you as a manager should be wanting people to start making dials as fast as possible. So okay, cool. This guy made $500 dials today. He got told F off 36 times and he's still here smiling and ready to roll.
Yeah.
And if someone else gets told F off 3 times and they quit, great. Sounds good. I don't have to focus any more time on this person. Um,
Which is huge.
so I think that's super important to like we want to not let anyone fail. But like the way that I learned, the way that Wiley learned, the way that you learned is like we failed our way through the whole thing. And to be honest, when Wiley started growing the most in this business, and he's on here so he can attest to this, is when I got so busy I had to do other shit to where I wasn't there to answer every question for him. And he started figuring out stuff on his own. He figured out how to be a really good marketer, a really good recruiter, because I wasn't there standing and being a shadow on him all the time. I got out of the way because I was busy, and he was able to grow a lot because he had to figure stuff out on his own. And then he started seeing himself as the amazing, phenomenal businessman that he is because I wasn't the shadow over top of him anymore. He was like, oh, I know how to do stuff on my own. I'm competent. I don't need Zach to do everything for me. I'm actually really good at this business, you know? So a lot of times we hurt people by standing and being a shadow over them as opposed to just getting out of the way and letting them figure stuff out on their own. It makes sense?
Yeah, you have to learn those lessons over time, and the
Yeah.
only way to learn them is by running into that bump or running into that mistake yourself and learning from it.
And
Now,
nothing builds your confidence more than going from the process of sucking at something, busting your ass at it, figuring it out, and then getting better. Then you feel good about yourself, you know? And then wash, rinse, and repeat. Then you feel better. And you start building wins up and you start feeling really good about yourself, you know?
yeah,
And I know, sorry, that was a little bit of a side tangent, and my brain works like that because I have ADD like a mother. But you asked then about like being able to scale a business and needing help, right? And I think that was a pivotal thing for you. Is I remember because I would always drive to my office in Austin, 35 minutes. I would call all my top guys in the morning. We would chat at least once a week when I was on the way to the office.
yeah,
And you were like, dude, I'm just like you were falling asleep at your desk at home, and you would never see your wife and kids, right? And so we started unpacking. I'm like, dude, what do you do all day long? And it was a lot of crap. Like it was like I'm responding to this. I'm sending out, helping this person schedule their state test. I'm doing this. You were doing all this stuff that generated no income, right? And I was like, all right, dude, I want you to write down everything that makes you money in the business that you have to do,
yeah,
right? Which was what? It was you selling insurance and you recruiting agents and you training people how to sell,
yeah,
right? And I'm like, everything that's not in there, you need to hire someone to do that stuff for you because I want you to see your wife and your kids, and you're not going to do well when you're divorced because your wife's awesome, you know? So I need you to see your wife, your kids, your family, and I need you to spend time doing something that actually makes you money, right? And then for you, what was it like to be able, because you're a control freak. Is that
yeah.
fair to say?
Man,
What
I
was it
like
like?
everything done like a certain way is my problem.
Yeah.
Like ADHD, just like you, like
Yeah.
this has to be on the shelf like a certain way. And like getting
Hmm.
rid of that side of you is really hard. And like that's something I remember you said you went through too. And then like you told me something like, hey, like I had 1 month in March where I was freaking out because I took like 12 people direct and thought I would never sell another policy.
Yeah.
And what it came down to was like, is hiring staff. Number one, my first hire was a dialer. So if you think you're going to
Hmm.
scale a team and IP more than 30K a month, like good luck, you need a dialer. And then other
Yep.
than that, it's like instead of like sending out DMs at night when you're smoked and tired or doing stuff for contracting, it's like simply hire somebody that's going to help you to do it. And if you guys want to see something crazy, I pulled this up for the call. Drop some ones in the chat. This is going to be insane. I was showing some of my top guys this other day. I'm going to show you guys like a graph of what happened after I hired staff. So look at from March all the way to August. It took me 5 months to grow 200,000. I hired staff right here. After that, it took us 4 months to double.
Yeah.
Imagine going from 600 to 1.4 million and doubling just because I hired staff. Like that's
Yeah.
how important staff is. Like if you guys are scaling and you're looking to get to the next level, take this message very clearly. You will not get to the next level by yourself. It is impossible. I've been through it. I've been through the nights where I was sleeping on the couch at 2, 3 in the morning, waking up at 7 to get back on my computer. Like you always said that around like 300K, like you need your own admin, you need your own
Yeah.
assistant. Like what would you start with and at what level would you say?
So I think, and my point to, because I remember you always going like, I want things done a particular way. I'm like, dude, for things that don't generate income, done is better than perfect, right?
Mhm.
Like just getting stuff done is better. And getting stuff done and having someone else do it is better than it being exactly perfect because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, you know? And for my perfectionists out there, like this, that was something I always told myself, like done is better, done quickly is better than it being perfect a week from now, you know? And I think like the longer I've been in this business, I realized that you get paid for making really quick decisions, moving fast on things, you know, giving a yes or a no, deciding something and moving on,
Yeah.
deciding something, moving on, right? And being able to run really efficiently and change quickly as the industry changes is one of the most important things you can ever have, you know? Sorry, what was your question again, Ronnie? My bad.
Like you always said like around like 300, like you
Yeah,
need to have like a couple people on staff because you always say, and you got it from Sean, like if you
yeah,
don't have staff, you don't have a business, right?
yeah. You're running a business, not a lemonade stand, right? Like I was telling someone that the other day, and this is kind of off topic, but they have one staff person. They didn't, so you need staff and you need to be able to track their activity, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a year and a half they've had a staff person. I'm like, how much revenue has that staff person generated for you? And they were like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, how many new writers do you have a week from that staff person or a month or anything? I don't know. I'm like, okay, like go pull up HCMS. How many new HCMS invites do I have? Oh, I don't know. Let me look, right? And it was like 10. I'm like, dude, congratulations. You run a non-for-profit recruiting organization. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So like yes, you have to have staff, but you also have to have clear-cut goals for your staff, right? So I think like the first thing is if you and I are both spending if you're spending 40 hours a week
What
on
the whack?
something and I'm spending 80 hours a week on something, right? Even if I'm half as good as you, we're going to get to the same place, right? So I always looked at it that way. I'm like, if I can have myself, a couple staff people doing outbound DMs, and someone doing contracting. If I have five staff, then if everyone's working 40 hours a week, right? I have five times as much time as Ronnie has. I could be I could be half as good as him, but because I have more manpower out there, I'm going to accomplish more, right?
Yeah.
So I think what you should look at is what are the things you need to get rid of right away? And I think you hire one staff person that can do a little bit of everything. What I did was I hired one staff person that could help get people through contracting. She did social media stuff. Um, she called my book of business to make sure that, all the policies were getting placed and that people fell off, that she would call and get them back on. She helped with doing the initial screening, recruiting calls. Dude, Jordan hired Wiley, or at least did the initial call with Wiley, and then set up the call where I called him right after that, right?
Yeah.
So she did a little bit of everything, and then from there, I looked at and observed and talked to her about what things she was best at, and then I moved the things away from her that she was not best at, right? So she was very good at being organized, staying on top of people, like following up, doing admin work, that sort of thing, but like not the best recruiter in the world, right? So I hired Jordan to be able to do a little bit of everything. And then from there, I started pulling stuff off of her that she was not the best at. So the next person I hired was a recruiter, right? And the next person after that I hired was someone to help with marketing. And then the next person after that I hired was somebody to do contracting. And then that's all we have now. I have 4 staff. We have 800 agents and we do just shy of $10 million a month, right? So once you have those couple things, you don't need a lot more. One recruiter, someone help with marketing, someone help with contracting, and then Jordan just kind of oversees all of it like a Swiss Army knife. And I think people look at it and they go, if you have 900 agents, you probably have like 20, 30 staff. It's like, no, because my goal is to teach Wiley how to duplicate what I duplicated.
Yeah.
And then Wiley can teach Mahmood to duplicate what he duplicated. And then Mahmood can teach you how to duplicate what he duplicated. And in our whole group, we may have a couple hundred, we may have 50 staff people between everybody, right? But I don't have to employ them all because I taught everyone how to duplicate what I duplicated. And it's that same old saying, right? It's like you can feed people for a day or you can teach them how to fish and they can feed themselves forever. And my goal was to teach people how to fish so that I can have a lot of people who make a lot of money. That's one thing you posted the other day. Is like a lot of people, there are groups out there who 1 or 2 people make all the money.
Yeah.
And like that's cool for them if that's their goal. But for me, that'd be very shallow. So my goal was not to like keep all the secrets to where everyone was dependent on me forever and I made all the money. I'm like, dude, I want all my friends to get rich with me. It feels a lot better when everyone's making money for you or with you instead of for you. And then what I realized is like once you actually get people that you have people that make you told me how much you made the first 2 weeks of this month. I don't know if you care if I share or not, but I'm like, holy shit, dude, I didn't make that much money in 2 weeks until I was in the business for like 5.5 years.
Yeah.
To see you do it after a year and a half, that feels better watching you do that than me doing it. And I think if you can start adapting that mindset of like, I want everyone to eat, not just myself, then you grow a really big organization. And then from a business standpoint, you don't have turnover. You don't have people always leaving. You don't have always people getting recruited away. You just have a very stable business that's built on a strong foundation that will keep growing no matter what. Like I've done a good job of showing y'all everything I know how to do. Dude, if I never answered the phone again, our business would grow. Not because of me, but because you guys have all gotten all the knowledge I learned from Sean and other people, and it would keep growing no matter what. Yeah. And I think like that's how you know you have a real business, if it'll grow without you. Now I think there's certain things that I can do and you can do in your business that will keep it growing faster if we're involved. But I like knowing that my business would be in a good place if I never worked again because I've taught people things instead of just having to depend on me forever.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Like the business is so simple. Like when people are worried about like losing spread or something like that, like this is a simple business. Like
Yeah.
the more you teach people how to make, the more you're gonna make. It like goes hand in hand, and like it's just consistency in selling, consistency in recruiting, and you just have to keep doing it. That's how
Yeah.
you continue to grow your income and give others a crazy opportunity. And I was talking to Tanner Mendelson about this other day, kind of like how you taught me with staff. It's like you make that list and you write down the stuff that you shouldn't be doing. And like some people may think, like, my biggest thing was like, I always thought that I wasn't big enough to have staff. And when it comes down to
Hmm.
like, hey, like your first staff person to spin back on that conversation is like, they can do a little bit of everything. Like if you look
Yeah.
at most of our guys, their staff DMs for them, they do their book of business. Like we taught Tanner's how to post on his Instagram for his posts and all that stuff. Like all of that stuff can be done by one person. And like in the
Hmm.
beginning stage when you might not need 3 or 4 or 5 people on staff like Zach or myself has, like you need to start with that one person so you can continue to work till you get to a level where you need multiple people. And I feel like it goes hand in hand, like I feel like you can't mess with me because there's like four of me because of the staff, like I'm in four
Yeah.
places at one time, and it makes it so much easier. And like so many people, like they don't know how much their time is worth. And when you broke it down to me, break down the stuff that you're doing, how much time it takes, and then break down how much you make a month and how much money you're losing a month by doing that stuff. Like I stopped cutting my grass, I stopped washing my
Yeah.
car. Like I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I used to love doing it, but it doesn't make sense to do it. And I'll say this joke real quick. My neighbor walked by the other day and my car was getting washed. And he's like, "Oh, you stopped washing the car, huh?" And I joked back at him. I was like, "I can't afford to anymore." He's like,
Yeah.
"What does that mean?" I was like, "Man, if you know, you know." I was like, and then just went inside. So it's kind
Well,
of
that's
fun.
what I asked you, Ronnie. I was like, hey, so like if you're dialed in focusing on stuff that makes you money, like what do you make an hour? This is like a year ago. And I think you're like, oh, like $1,200 an hour.
Yeah.
I sell a policy, I make $1,200. I'm like, okay, cool. If you is washing your car worth $1,200 to you? No. Then hire someone to do it for, even if it costs $200, which would be a really expensive car wash, like you still netted $1,000 if you can spend that time working on something that produces income, right? And I think that's where I've tried to live my life is like I only want to do stuff. I only want to do stuff I want to do, which for me is spend time with my family or do things that produce income. Outside of that, I'm outsourcing it. People ask me all the time, like, "Hey, what do you do for accounting?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. I hired an accountant. I'm not an accountant. I hired an accountant. Because they can take that stuff, and it may take me 10 hours to do my taxes, but in that 10 hours, I can make 20 grand, and the accountant costs $2,000, so I still am positive $18,000. And I think like is it uncomfortable the first time to hire people to do everything? Of course it is, right? But then if you start viewing yourself and viewing how valuable your time is, then and you can spend all your time on money making activities, you become a lot more productive, a lot more profitable as a business and as a person. Even if you're just a top producer, even if you're like, hey, I don't want to build a big business, I still would argue like if you want to be really dialed in as a top producer, you could have one assistant that helps out with everything, and someone that manages. Dude, my staff pay my Jordan's been there 7 years. She pays my personal bills. Like, dude, my life is so automated. All I have to do is show up. My schedule's dialed in. I know where I'm going all the time. My travel is already pre-booked. But I don't have to think about all this stuff that takes up time, takes up space in everyone's brain. I just have to show up, do what I need to do, focus on things that make money. And people are like, "How do you have time to do all this stuff?" I'm like, "Because everything else in my personal life is already taken care of for me. So all I have to focus on is either my family or work. And work meaning stuff that actually generates income for our business, and that's it. And I think that I remember when I first started hanging out with Sean, Ronnie, we'd go
Okay.
somewhere, we'd travel together, and we'd land, and then there'd be a car there, and then we'd get in the car, and there'd be food there already, and then we'd get to the meeting, and we would go to the meeting, and he would talk, and then I would talk, and then we would leave like 30 seconds after I talked, and then we'd be back at the airport. I'm like, dude, that was the most efficient hour and a half I've ever seen in my life. And I just was like, can I start being at least half as efficient as he is with his time and have every second accounted for through my day? So every Sunday still, dude, I go through my calendar, I go through what I'm doing for the rest of the week. I see what meetings I have, I see what travel I have, and then I see what stuff I need to add in there that has not already been pre-booked in my calendar. And then I don't have to think about what I'm doing on Monday. I reviewed it on Sunday, so I know exactly what I'm doing for the next day. I don't have to wake up and wonder like, do I have recruiting calls today? What meetings do I have? Because that stuff takes up so much mental space in our heads, and it makes it really hard to act and to be able to be decisive and know what you're doing and confidently move through your day. If you're always wondering, should I be working? Should I be hanging out with my family? Like, dude, I have date night planned. And then I have this work trip. Like, I'm in San Diego right now. And then last week I was home all week. The week before that, I was gone for 7 days. But it's all planned out. So when I was gone for 7 days, I didn't feel like I should be home with my family. And then when I was home last week because my wife was working nights, I didn't feel like I should be working 50 hours, 60 hours a week. I'm like, I need to be home at 5 o'clock every day to watch my kids because my schedule is planned out for 2 months in advance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is huge. And like most people, they don't know where to start with staff, and it's just simple. Like I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
I still don't think like I think I always know that I can improve. And like this other day, I was in your staff call asking how you run them, and the way you
Hmm.
guys start by getting to that level and knowing how to do stuff, it's simple. Just ask people that have done it before you. I didn't
Hmm.
know anything about this business. All I do is just ask, hey, how do you do this? How would you do that? And the biggest thing that, as we begin to wrap it up, if you guys been enjoying this so far, I know tons of people are shooting me like questions saying how great it is. Drop some ones in the chat if you guys are enjoying it so far. The biggest thing that I think most people they struggle with as they develop into leaders is a few things. It's communication and knowing how to meet people halfway. And I struggled with those two specifically. So I think everybody goes through that phase where they don't know how to communicate well and like, as they're developing into leaders, like what would you have to say about that when it comes down to knowing how to communicate effectively and
Hmm.
meeting people halfway, like you always say?
So I think you have to get good at you have to get really good at asking questions the way that everyone does when they're doing their presentations, right? And the way that I address this group would be very different than the way I address like Juan Franco's group, right? And the reason is because I know like everyone's goals are and where they're at. And I think one thing we try to do is you bring a new agent on and you go, okay, my expectations are you make $500 a day, you sell 30 grand a month, blah, 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 right? And you tell them like what you think they should do. What I learned and when like everything started to click for me in the business was I'd go, okay, Ronnie, like you have two restaurants right now, you want to do insurance full time. What do you have to make per month to be able to replace your current income?
15K.
15K a month. Okay, got it. And then how much time do you have right now outside of everything you're doing with your family, restaurants, and whatnot to be able to dedicate to life insurance right now?
15, 20 hours a week.
15, 20 hours a week. Okay, cool. Let's do this, dude. Let's build out a whole schedule. You can tell me what days you have to be at the restaurants, what days you need to spend time with your kids, and we're gonna build the life insurance thing around that. Okay. And you need to make at least 15K a month. What's your goal of what you would make if you were doing insurance full time and you gave up what you built with the restaurants?
If I could make 20K a month, I'd burn them down
Make
tomorrow.
20K a month. Okay, cool. And I know you said you could do like 15 to 20 hours a week. Let's do this, dude. Let's get on a Zoom. Let's build out a schedule for the next 3 weeks of what hours you can be working throughout the day. I know you said you're married and have three kids. Is your wife going to be okay if you're working essentially 80, 90, 100 hours a week for the next 3 weeks to see if this will be a good fit for you or not? So
Yeah,
we can move you into full time.
we could sacrifice it for a month.
Got it. Do you need to have that conversation with her now, or like if you tell her that's what you're doing, she's gonna be okay with it? I don't know your guys' dynamic. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, we'll talk about it amongst each other and just say we have to sacrifice it for it to get done.
Okay, cool. So let's do this. Let's build out your schedule. And then what we're going to need to do is for you to be able to write 20 grand a month, you're going to have to probably spend at least 500 to 750 a week on leads, maybe $1,000 a week on leads. Do you have the ability to do that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is what we're going to do. And then I would just build out your whole schedule with you and go on Sunday, you're going to have from this time to this time but I don't go like, hey, I need you to make $500 a day and you need to sell 30 grand a month. I go, hey man, what are your goals? What does your family dynamic look like? Okay, let me help you get there. And then my goal with Ronnie is different than my goal with Nate, right? Because Nate may be, hey, I'm 20 years old, I have no responsibilities, I can work 80 hours a week, and my conversation is very different with him, right? Same with Juan, dude. Juan's 60 years old. Juan's goal is not to necessarily make $3, $4, $5 million a year. Juan's goal is to make enough money to where he can enjoy life and take 5, 6, 7, 10 vacations a year and sell close to $1 million a year. So my conversation with him is very different. I'm not pushing Juan and saying like, hey, why aren't you recruiting? I know you're not 20 years old, Nate. I just saw you on there. You don't
Mhm.
look 20 for anyone. No one's confused, dude. I promise. But um, but my conversation with Juan's very different, right? And I do it through getting through questions with him, like, hey, what is your goal? How many hours do you want to work a week? You know, do you want to spend more time with your wife and your daughter? Like, how many vacations do you want to take a year? I think the biggest thing that we do wrong a lot of times when we're new is we try to like, and I did this all the time, dude. I was like, if you don't sell 50 grand a month, you should quit. And then I wondered why everyone quit.
Yeah.
And I learned to go like, okay, like Ronnie, here was what your goals are. Let me help you get to your goals. Your goal wasn't to make 400 grand a month when you started the business. It was to make 20 grand a month, right? And if I had told you my goal was to get you to make 400 grand a month one of the business, you'd have been like, dude, you're full of shit. There's never going to work out, right? Like that doesn't make sense. I work 80 hours a week. There's no way I'm going to make 400 grand a month ever.
Yeah.
But my goal is to get you making 15, 20, 25, 30 grand and then get you around people like Sean and other people who have made a lot of money to where you go, oh, these are just normal people. That's possible, right? So I think my biggest advice surrounding this whole thing is like, don't try to fit a round peg in a square hole with everybody. Like customize it the same way we do with clients, you know? With clients, if someone you don't treat someone who is 22 years old that makes 10 grand a month and wants $1 million of life insurance the same way you treat an 80-year-old that makes 1,200 bucks a month and has congestive heart failure. Those are two totally different conversations, right? And we're really good at being dynamic and selling, but we're not good at being dynamic with agents. And we treat everyone exactly the same. And if you saw the way I talk on Juan's call versus y'all's call, it'd be very different because I know the different goals and different aspirations and different groups that I'm dealing with. And once you get good at being able to kind of be a chameleon and talk to people differently, change up your, tonality and sometimes talk faster, sometimes talk slower, be able to draw people in and be able to talk to all different types of people, then you can have a super diverse group, right? Where we have y'all who are super young, our Austin office looks like a fraternity, our, Juan's office, the average age is probably 62 years old, and then we have a group of all Nigerian women in that office too. Like it's very different. And I've learned over time how to communicate with all of them because Sean told me over and over again, like you're going to have to learn how to slow down and depending on which environment you're in, be able to kind of blend in and talk to every single person, not the same way that you would want to be talked to, but the way that they need to be talked to be led.
Which is huge. And your approach to communicating and leading is like what I took away is like you almost put the ball on people's court and you meet them halfway, because I think the biggest
Yeah.
thing that leaders struggle with early on is wanting, like I used to always tell you, like if people weren't writing 20 or 30K a month on my team, I didn't even want them on my team.
Yeah.
Which is like, you can't, like it doesn't work that way. You can't force everybody to write 40, 50K a month, because at the end of the day, you have to meet those people halfway. You can't do the work for them. And oftentimes I see leaders like getting stressed out why their guy isn't doing 30 or 40K a month. Like, dude, he doesn't want to. If
Yeah.
he's writing the 20K a month and making, whatever, 6 to 10K a month, whatever his comp is at, like that's fine if he's fine with it. If he
Yeah.
wants to improve, it's like, hey, and you gave me this trick where you do it at the end of the month. And like for people that are building their team, this is how you open the door for somebody to reach out to you that wants to get to the next level. I learned it from you. It's like simple text at the end of the month when numbers come out, like, hey man, you've been crushing it. If you want to get to the next level, or if I can ever help you with anything, just shoot me a text, man. And boom, the
Mhm.
door is open and you open that door for them. And that's how you can continue to develop people. But, you always said like it's a two-way road. You can't want something more than others. I know you're in San Diego and pretty busy traveling. What would you say is one thing to wrap up the call? What's one thing you would leave us with, with all of the big goals that we have as a group this year in Capital for 2025? If you could leave all of our new leaders with one thing, and as you have with all of the great leaders in our group that you've built up, what's one thing that you could leave these guys with today?
Yeah. I think it's a couple of things, right? It's like be very dedicated to your short-term goals and structure. Like I think a lot of times we make like really big goals but don't have specific action plans to hit them, right? So if your goal is like, hey, I want to be at, and we mapped this out, Ronnie, like a year ago, like you want to be at $1 million a month. Okay, cool. It's one thing to say that, then what are the daily action steps you have to hit to be there, right? And you have to break it all the way back down. You go, okay, let's just say the average producer is 10K a month. Yours is going to be better than that because you sell a lot, but let's just plan for worst case scenario. So you need 100 writers. Okay, if you need 100 writers, how many people do you need to add a week to get to 100 writers in a year? There's 52 weeks in a year, right? I need 2 people a week. So how many interviews do you have to do a week to be able to have 2 new people start selling insurance every week? I have to put 15 people in class. I know a month later, 2 of those will be selling insurance or whatever your numbers are, right?
Yeah.
But have daily non-negotiables you're going to do to be able to hit the long-term goals. Because I think we do a really good job of setting long-term goals and a really bad job of sticking to our daily non-negotiables. And then the second part of that is like if you miss it one day, not going like, oh, okay, I'll try again tomorrow, rolling it forward and go, I was supposed to recruit 15 people this week and I only recruited 8. It doesn't mean next week you recruit 15. It means that you recruit 23 the next week, and you stick to whatever your plan is. And if you had a bad week one week, it doesn't mean you get to start from scratch. It's you try to make that up the next week, right? Or if your goal is to sell 15 grand every week, and you sell 10, next week doesn't mean you have to sell 15. It means you got to sell 20 to stick to your goals, right? So hold yourself crazily accountable on the daily non-negotiables. And then when you're recruiting, building, talking to people, communicating with people, do it in a way to help them hit their goals, right? Like we talked about just now.
Yeah.
So when you're recruiting, I think a lot of times people recruit with they use the same thing. They use everything's everything's the same speed, everything's the same pitch. There's no change up. It's always we have the best comp, best systems, highest IP per writer, blah 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 blah, right? Like, and we did this in the office recently. We did training on recruiting, but like when I'm recruiting people, Ronnie, my goal is to figure out where their hot button is, right? So like with you, yours wasn't even like I want to make $2 million a year. I would ask you enough questions to go, okay, sounds good. So hey, if you could make the same exact amount of money you're making right now, working half the time and spend a ton of time with your family, would you be happy? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, and I would talk to you in general terms about, I wouldn't even tell you about life insurance, nothing, dude. I would just talk to you about like, hey, if I could show you how to make the same amount of money you make now, working half the time, would you want to do it? Yes. Right. And I think we have to get really, really good at asking people questions that fit their needs. And I've learned that as I've gotten, dude, now I have 2 kids and I'm married. When I was 22 and starting the industry, my goals were very different. My goals were to make as much money as possible then. Now my goals are to spend as much time and be as good of a father and a husband as I could possibly be. It's very different goals, very different stages of life. And I think we treat everyone the same way where we assume their goal is to make a couple $1 million a year. People could want to do what we want to do for a number of different reasons. They could want to make more money. They could want more time. They could want the ability to work when they're traveling. There could be a ton of different things that they could want to build residual income, but it's all different. And we can't just shove the same like ideas that we have down everyone's throat. You know what I mean? Here's a good example. My sister-in-law, Ronnie, works for Amazon. She makes 400 grand a year.
Yeah.
This was maybe a month ago. They live in Dallas. She traveled from Dallas to Boston to Seattle to Barcelona in the same week because she controls logistics for Amazon.
Yeah.
She got 2 little kids and she's a great mom, but she's never home. And I literally had the conversation with her. I'm like, Diane, you're probably the smartest person I've ever met in my life. But you work 100 hours a week for Amazon for like 400 grand a year. If I could show you to do the same thing in 50 hours a week, would you do it? She's like, I know what you do. I don't want to do sales. I'm like, no. If I could show you how to do the same amount of money you make now and work 40, 50 hours a week, would you do it? She's like, yeah. I'm like, why don't you get your license? I'll show you how to do the same thing and you can see your kids. Because you never see them. You're going to miss them growing up. Yeah. And she's getting her license now. Dude, she's like one of the highest positions you could have at Amazon.
Yeah.
But I didn't go and say like, hey, our comp is this high. This is how our bonuses work. Dude, we didn't talk about any of that shit. I talked about how stable the industry was and how it works, how much you sell, how many leads you get is how much you sell. We talked about I didn't talk about recruiting. I didn't talk about integrity, nothing, dude. It's very surface level. Like I can show you how to do this, make X, Y, Z and solve the problem that you have. Make sense? And so I think like when you guys are doing that on a sales side or recruiting side, like be very intentional about finding the actual problem and then understand whether we're selling or we're recruiting, like we have the solution to it. Yeah, I could show you how to make a multiple 7-figure income, or I could show you how to be at home with your family all the time. It's up to you, but you have to do a good job of uncovering the hot button and then solving it for people. And even if it's more specific, Ronnie, like we talked to the solar guys, like, hey, what was the biggest issue with, dude, I would have thought it'd be door knocking all day long. And I was asking those guys, like, what was your biggest issue with solar, right? And it wasn't door knocking all day long. They're like, dude, if I could make $3 million a year door knocking, I would do it.
Yeah.
It was that there was a long time between when you sell and then there was a lot of other pieces in the middle before you get paid.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, how do we solve that problem? You write a policy, it gets approved, they make the payment, they get paid the next day. Problem solved. That's their biggest constraint, right? And if you figure out and focus on the biggest constraint, I would have spent all my time selling them on selling virtually. They're like, dude, I don't give a shit. I'll go knock doors and make $3 million a year. I'm like, no, their biggest constraint is they have to wait on other people to get paid. So then I hone in and focus on that and talk about how our industry solves that problem for them.
Which is huge, just finding the constraint. And then on a final note, where are we taking capital this year? End of the year, December 2025. How much are we finishing a month? These guys got to know.
So we finished last month at $9 million a month, which is a big testament to you guys. So y'all are growing like crazy. And we're going to be at $20 million a month by the end of the year. We got a ton of growth everywhere. We got a bunch of people absolutely ripping. And I know this team is going to be a massive, massive part of it. And guys, I can't say it enough. Like everyone on here, I appreciate everything y'all do. You guys work your butts off. That's why we pay the agents the majority of the money, because you guys do the work. And I appreciate y'all being here. Ronnie, you guys are doing an amazing job building this culture and this team out. And as always, man, I'm here to help, but y'all are doing all the work, and I just appreciate any chance I have to give back to the team at all.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate you for everything that you do for our team and everything you do to give back for the group and the company as a whole. And, we always got your back, that's for sure. And appreciate you getting on with us today.
All right, y'all keep crushing it. If anyone needs anything, as always, reach out. See y'all later.
Appreciate you. Take care.